Well, Dennis, our trade deadline coverage continues here on the fourth period, brought to you by Betway. Now, I want to start with the player in Vancouver. His name's Conor Garland. It's actually pretty funny that we're talking about him now because we believe that he's the player that the Canucks prefer to move or at the deadline as opposed to JT Miller, Brock Besser, but we've been hearing. But for you, what does a player like Conor Garland add to a team?
Well, he's going to have some term on the contract, so you have certainty there. But he's 26 years old. It hasn't been a fit in Vancouver. From whatever, he's not the biggest player in the world. He's more a play driver than a playmaker. His assist, he's a great passer, but he really isn't that big time goal scorer they need, and that's why you want to keep a Brock Besser or a JT Miller. But I think a very effective middle six guy. On some teams, a third line winger. On others, second line winger, and that's why you always have the conversation about Boston. He's from that area, so to me, Boston would be a nice fit for Conor Garland if they choose to take on a term like that, which may be a barrier for some teams at this point.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Boston Bruins. We've also hearing, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Devils, and obviously the Blue Jackets might be in the mix for a player of Conor Garland's services. But I want to stick with the Bruins for a second. Obviously, yes, we'll put Garland aside, but what do the Bruins need to do here come deadline?
Well, I think they're still looking at their deal on the blue line. So is it a rental? Is it a Ben Chirot from Montreal, who now is being set out, quote unquote, asset protection by the Habs? Is it a Mark Stahl? Is it a Calvin DeHaan? So they're still looking, and given the way they played down the stretch here, they've been as hot as any team in the league. So there's a belief in Boston that with one, possibly two ads, maybe both up front and on the blue line, they can make some noise in the East.
I think a lot of us have picked this next team to go on and win the Stanley Cup the last couple of seasons, and that's the Colorado Avalanche. And right now, Dennis, it seems like Joe Sakic is playing chess while a lot of the other GMs are playing checkers in the moves that he's been making the last couple of days.
So, Irf, my hometown Rams, they went all in, won a championship, right? Joe Sakic, all in. Right? Made the move for Josh Manson, I think a great ad. Teams like Toronto and Edmonton were interested. I just don't think he had the appetite to move to Canada for the stretch. And now you make the trade, Tyson Jost for Nico Sturm. You free up another $1 million in cap space. Anybody? Claude Giroux, anyone? So to me, this team should be all in, Irf. Like if you're a Colorado Avalanche fan in Denver, you want this team to be all in. They're right there. I don't really think there's an excuse not to win the Cup this season. So for Sakic, I'm all for a move like that, and the aggressive move to go get Josh Manson will certainly help on the blue line once we get to game 83.
Yeah, well, with just 6 more days to go, less than a week, things are starting to heat up just a little bit as the NHL trade deadline approaches. Dennis, thank you very much for this. And as always, for more on our trade deadline coverage brought to you by Betway, head on over to thefourthperiod.com.